and welcome to the Nighthawk Racing and F1-R08 Championship. Firstly, I'm Midnight. You can see myself and the rest of our other drivers here on our Nighthawk Racing YouTube, where you can check out the entire back catalogue of seasons 1 to 3 of the F1-R08 series. Also, our mini-series and all one-off race events, all of which are highly competitive and lots of fun. Please check out our Instagram and TikTok for other content and races too. Link in the description or scan the QR dot for more information. But now, let's focus on the event at hand. Tonight is Season 4, Round 8, Road Atlanta Blue Lobby. So a little more information on the championship. There are 10 events that you can see on our calendar in front of you now, which are divided up into red and blue lobbies. There are 2 racing events with a qualifying session for the big feature race itself. The sprint race tonight is 13 laps. The grid is formed via how drivers line up in reverse average points scored across the season. The feature race is 51 laps. All drivers must use 2 different tyre compounds while starting on the same compound they set their fastest lap in the qualifying session just before. As a reminder, the blue lobby has all driver aids switched on, such as traction control, ASM and ABS, whereas the red lobby has all of these disabled with the exception of ABS for that true hardcore driving experience to really challenge our drivers.
Right, so while the drivers are qualifying, let's talk about the track. We are driving the Road Atlanta, also known as the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, as some may know it. But I really like this track, so I'm excited to see how everyone gets on. I've raced it before in other series and in other categories as well, so I really do enjoy kind of the different corners. You know, obviously it's they've got some corners which are really tight, but then you've got some that are really kind of fast flowing, so it's a lot to kind of process while you're racing as well. But the Road Atlanta is a real world racetrack located in Georgia in the USA that made its debut in GT7, so you know, only a quite recent track in the recent game. Obviously it wasn't in any previous GT games, so a lot of drivers have had you know, only got to experience Road Atlanta in GT7, but it's a welcome addition, shall we say. But in real life, the most famous race is hosted at Road Atlanta is the Petit Le Mans, a 10-hour race that is usually held as part of the IMSA, the top level endurance racing in the United States. And I've got to say, I've watched it a few times and it's definitely a lot of fun. But the track itself is 4.808 kilometers, or just over 2.5 miles, and like I say, I think the drivers are going to enjoy this one. But let's get into the sprint race and see how everyone done.
And here we are for round 8 of season 4 here in the blue lobby at Road Atlanta. So on pole position in that Ferrari 458 we have Tygo, who will be just in front of Super Simon in the Mclaren. Also in the Mclaren in 3rd place we have Sparky. In P4 we have in the Supra Murphy. And P5 we have Iceman in that Genesis. And in P6 we have our very own admin Ziggy in the Mercedes AMG. And in P7 we have our very own co-creator of Nighthawk Racing, Sarah Hawkey, in that BMW M6. And over to Sarah for the next scene.
In P8 we have a Big Crazy Birdie in that McLaren 650S. In P9 we then have Lee in the Unlimited Motorsport Porsche 911. In P10 we then have T50 Gary in one of our Nissan GTRs. Starting just behind in P11 we have Nigel Mansell in that Ferrari 458. In P12 we then have Coach in that Toyota Supra sporting the Castrol livery. And in P13 we have a new face to the grid, Midnight, in Damo in the Toyota Supra.
Yes, we do, and good luck to Damo on his first race here in the blue lobby with Nighthawk Racing. And I gotta say, it's an interesting grid for here at Road Atlanta. Is there anyone in particular that you've got an eye on? I mean, for me, I'm going to have to say straight off the bat, keep an eye on Lee. He's always interesting in a sprint race in particular. But yeah, who's your one to watch?
I think for sure Lee as well. Obviously, he's got very good form in the sprint races. He's able to, work his way through the grid and get near or on the podium. But apart from that, I'd probably say either Sparky or Murphy, starting quite high up, especially Murphy in that Toyota Supra, which seems to be, the unbeatable car at the moment. So I'll be keeping an eye on him and seeing if he can, get on the top spot of the podium this week. I think everyone has got a chance to do pretty well here. They're all, doing quite well. And obviously, I think, I'm going to keep my eye on Murphy and Sparky, but everyone's in with a shout with this one.
To be fair, I wholeheartedly agree with your assessment there. So, without further ado, I'm just going to say one last thing. Keep an eye on our admin of Ziggy, Sarah and Bertie in this one. All have been on good form. But without further ado, let's get into the sprint race.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so leading us away tonight for our sprint race, we have Tygo, followed by Simon, Sparky, Merv and Iceman in P5. And away we go. A very good start, a very good rolling start from Tygo as we run in towards the first corner. As we looks like Sparky already has a run on Super Simon. He's looked towards the inside, making it quite an easy move there on the other Mclaren driver. As Merv also follows him through, as well as Iceman as well. It seems like a great start there from Super Simon as Ziggy goes very wide into the on the exit of turn 3. And there he goes round. Unfortunately into the wall, as all that hard work from Ziggy as he drops down towards the back of the pack. Back up at the front of the field, we have Tygo still leading out front, followed by Sparky and Merv. Again, unfortunately not a very good start there from Simon as he finds himself down towards P11. As we see in the mid-pack, we have Gary picking up a half-second penalty. But other than that, it seems like quite a good start there for especially someone like Sarah, already up a few positions there, Mac.
Yeah, definitely. I was riding on board with Bertie as they headed through that first sector, and you can see Sarah was ahead of Bertie and is still ahead of Bertie as they were filing through the track and was getting up a few positions there after that instant from Ziggy and making a few moves. As we now look towards the front, you can see there Bertie in the McLaren, as I mentioned, just behind Sarah, just as how they started. Well, it looks like a bit of a chaotic start there with Ziggy spinning around in the first sector. This first sector is very, very tricky, of course. There's been a lot of drivers on the limits today throughout practice and qualifying in that first sector. Especially those mid-rear cars will get very dancy, and you have to really control the weight shift as you head through the S section. But now we look up towards the front, and you can see Sparky in P2, just following Tigran in the Ferrari 458. See catching a small bit there as they head through turn 5 now. Very easy to go wide there on the exit. If you do go wide onto that blue and yellow kind of runoff area, you will unfortunately get a penalty most of the time, 5/10 or a second. So be expecting drivers to be getting trackline penalties through there, as it's very difficult to control the car, especially on worn tires into that section. As they head now into the straight, seems to settle down very quickly. Usually, especially at Trial Mountain, we saw kind of a bit of chaos in the first few laps. Everybody was trying to get positions throughout the field, but pretty calm now after that first lap there, Kirk.
Yeah, as we see Merv looking at pull out of the situation there, trying to catch Sparky off guard, slightly into the final chicane, but Sparky not falling for any tricks at this moment in time. As we look around the field, it looks like we have Bertie looking all over the back of Sarah. Is he going to look towards the inside in the first corner? No, he doesn't. Sticks behind for now, thinks better of it as Sarah goes a little bit wide into the first corner. Is this going to allow Bertie to sneak through? It looks like Sarah can just hold off for now. But it seems like any slight mistake here could possibly be punished quite severely, as Lee is also looking behind Bertie to take advantage of any mistakes.
Yeah, there's drivers starting to try and launch moves now. It's very much that first sector breaks up a lot of the overtaking opportunities that usually would be present on a few other tracks, just because of the fact that they're so quick, so fast, and very easy to get wrong if you end up getting the wrong footing. Going out a bit wide in some of the corners can make you end up straight in the grass and potentially visiting Barrier. But we head now onto the straight, as Tigo has lost position to Sparky there, so we haven't seen what's happened there. The McLaren 650S driver getting ahead of the 458, and now Murph taking the opportunity to get ahead of the Dutch drivers. They head now into turn 10A, and it looks like Murph not managing to get ahead there for now. There's a bit of grass being kicked up as Iceman and Sarah are joining this battle. We're going to be going basically 4 cars abreast heading into turn 12. Looked like they were going to go 4 wide there for a second, but definitely thinking they wanted to live through turn 12 and see another day. So we head into turn 1 now. Bit of contact there between Birdie and Iceman. And you can see Sarah still managing to stay ahead of Birdie even after Birdie tries to launch move down the inside. And unfortunately meeting Iceman's rear bumper. There's a bit of grass being kicked up now by the Genesis driver, getting a 5-10 penalty. I told you track limits were harsh around here. Getting a track limit penalty in that first sector for kicking up some grass, as Tigo has managed to stay ahead of Murph through the last sector. And yeah, Sarah going wide there as well. That might be a penalty for her.
Yeah, it looks like she managed to escape it this time, as she looks to go around the outside of Iceman, coming on towards the back straight. It looks like Iceman may lose 3, 4, maybe even 5 positions thanks to this half attempt penalty, as we look back up towards this battle for P2. Tygo and Merv going side by side as they run down towards the chicane. It looks like the power of the Supra allowed him to drive past that Ferrari as they come towards the braking zone. Can Tygo fight it back? He's just too far behind into the braking zone as Merv takes that position. Is he going to compromise his exit, as he was forced to take a tighter line into the chicane? But it looks like he holds P2 to now trying to hunt down that McLaren Sparky. It looks like the penalty did cost Iceman quite badly there, as he is dropped from, was it P4 down to P8 Mac.
Yeah, definitely, and already Iceman's trying to get onto the rear bumper of Gary to try claw some of those positions back, but Gary going defensive and defending that inside line to stop Iceman from making any move, and Iceman will probably be stuck behind the rear bumper of that GTR until the end of this first sector. At least as we see, Sarah has maybe made a mistake and is being overtaken by Birdie now, as a bit of grass being kicked up as Sarah nearly goes wide, and Birdie managing to get up in position. The 650S driver capitalizing on a mistake from Sarah through that first sector. And it's, I mean, I said there was not going to be much overtakes through sector 1, but of course if you do make a mistake, it's very easy to get the upper hand, get a better exit, and get the exiting speed through sector 1. So Birdie will be ahead of the M6 driver, as Lee and Gary will be interested now from behind on taking that 5th position from Sarah in that slipstream. Gary.
Yeah. So I was saying, it's like at the back there, Iceman picking up another half-second penalty. He needs to work on not getting any more of those if he wants to go forward during the rest of this race.
Yeah, definitely. So unfortunate from Iceman, just maybe struggling with the track limits a small bit. And trust me, he's not the only one, because there were many drivers in the red lobby also struggling with those track limit penalties, and I'm sure we'll see many more to come, just because of the nature of this track. It's all grass. There's very little tarmac runoff, except for that one corner that I mentioned, where you will get a very hefty penalty, and you will pay the price if you try to take any extra curb through there. As you can see now, the driver's filing through turn 3 and 4. Lee's gone wide, and Lee's off into the grass, and he's into the barrier. He slams the rear end of the 911 into the barrier and drops down to 8th position. So Iceman will manage to get back from P8, and has got another half-second penalty, but that's unfortunate from Lee, just getting a bit wide onto the grass and causing him to have a spin into the barrier.
We had a very similar situation as they crested the hill. Tygo dropping from P3 down to P6 again, getting a slight snap as he threw it left and run wide. Unfortunately, not picking up any penalty, but losing 3 positions to Bertie, Sarah, and Gary.
Murph here now is on the back of Sparky. There might be a move here into turn 10A and B. The Supra on the inside of the 650S, and Murph later of the breakers getting ahead there of the 650S driver. So Murph now inherits that lead in the Supra and will be heading into the next lap leading the race. Sparky will be following close behind. And Bertie, let me just mention Bertie up in P3 there, managing to keep that consistency in the sprint race. Stay away from all the chaos and up into P3. Brilliant performance from him so far. And the same for Sarah, who's been trailing him for a lot of the race as well.
Yeah, obviously we saw them start down towards the back of the pack, but they managed to keep it clean, keep out of trouble. Well, for the most part, keep out of trouble, and they're certainly reaping the rewards as they done nothing but move forward. As it looks like Sparky going a little bit wide there on the exit of the crest of the hill, and possibly losing a little bit of time there, and picking up a half-second penalty, which is going to drop him right back into Bertie's clutches in the penalty zone on this back straight, Mac.
Yeah, we'll have to see how harsh that penalty is. If he's going to end up losing the position to Bertie, it's going to be the two 650Ss fighting side by side if he manages to get close. But it looks like Bertie might not have it the best of exits out of that second sector, as it looks like he has dropped back from Sparky a small bit. You can see Bertie, the closing speed very different between them, but it's just not enough to be able to catch up to the back of that 650S. So a bit more work needed to be done by Bertie if he wants to get that P2, which I'm sure he'll be trying in these next few laps.
Yeah, and just, well, that penalty that Sparky got, he's allowed Merv to really pull away out the front as he sets almost matches the fastest lap of the lobby so far, taking full advantage of the clear area he's got out front to be able to stretch his advantage, as it looks like Bertie is now close right up to the back of his fellow McLaren driver and is almost pushing Sparky through this first sector.
Yeah, we'll see now. This first sector is kind of hard to follow. There's a lot of dirty air that comes off the car in front, but it does allow you to choose your line, and you see where the other driver is taking their line and potentially have a better one and a better exit than them. But you see they're dropping a bit back after turn 5, not managing to get a good exit. But we saw Bertie not have the best of runs in the last sector too. So we'll have to see if the same happens here. Although Sparky kicks up a bit of grass and has a little bit of oversteer, so that might help Bertie catch up to the rear of the other 650S driver as they head down the straight. Now you can definitely see Bertie is starting to catch a small bit, but will it be enough to make a lunge into the next corner?
Yeah, I don't think it is. Sparky pulls out. Think about defending as he comes back towards the racing line. Bertie a little bit too far behind, but that defensive manoeuvre into that, well, the entry of the chicane has really cost Sparky a compromised exit, which allows Bertie to sneak through up the inside into the final corner. And he's a pretty good overtake there. Took advantage, made the cutback work. Prioritise the exit as Sparky looks towards the inside of the first corner, but is still following Bertie for now. Is he going to lunge it in towards turn 3? He thinks better of it, but that is going to really compromise his run down the hill and allow Bertie to get a bit of a valuable breathing space, Mac.
Yeah, and the thing that's done as well, because Sparky was trying to go for that aggressive line, was Sarah's caught right up to the back of Sparky, and we see as well Gary, who was behind Sarah, has had a bit of an issue in the first sector and has dropped back from the gearbox of the M6 driver as Sparky goes round the outside into turn 6 and manages to get ahead of Bertie. There's a bit of contact between Sarah and Bertie, which will make Bertie go straight onto the grass and not get a good exit. So Sparky getting lucky there, and Sarah and Bertie having a bit of contact, which will slow them down onto this long straight, which will compromise their top speed. And of course Sparky now is just pulling off into the distance there. I'm sure Bertie won't be too happy with that one.
No, but Sparky's gone from losing P2 to now P2, a bit of breathing room in the space of a lap to show you how fast things can change. But I'm sure Bertie's going to be looking at getting past Sarah quite quickly to try and hunt down Sparky again, as Sarah goes a little bit wide in the exit of the final corner, touching a bit of grass. Bertie looks towards the inside. Can he outbrake that BMW driver? Yes, he does, and takes the optimum racing line and uses the camber of the circuit to make the position work, as he now goes back to hunting down Sparky for P2 as he goes deep in towards turn 3. He's on the grass, which is going to allow Sarah to go round the outside of the McLaren driver, running down the hill. Who says you can't overtake in this first sector, Mac?
Yeah, I feel a bit silly saying that now because we've seen a lot of overtaking, but a lot of those overtakes have been because of those mistakes, and we're seeing it time and time again. We're seeing Gary, of course, who had that little spin in the first sector. We saw people like Lee and Ziggy have those spins, and that's where a lot of those overtakes happen. And people who manage to not have a big moment and end up saving it will lose a few seconds because of touching the grass or having an oversteer moment, because it disrupts the whole flow of the S's of that turn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 complex. We look up to the front now. Murph has quite a commanding lead with Sparky following behind. She was managed to pull away from Sarah and Birdie after they had their little scuffle. As Birdie now behind is under pressure from Iceman, the Genesis driver on the inside, managed to get the move done before 10B.
Yeah, I mean, quite a well done move. Managed to outbrake Bertie in the McLaren and slide up his inside to take 4th position as he now hunts down the BMW driver of Sarah. Iceman, it's been a varied race for Iceman. Obviously, we see him pick a few penalties up early on, dropping him down to P8, but he's done quite a good recovery drive, wouldn't you say, Mike? Up into P4, and the podium definitely not out the question at this moment.
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned, we saw him get those few penalties at the start of the race for stuff like track limits, and of course, the sprint is always a learning experience. A lot of the time when I'm driving, I will use the sprint for a bit of feedback, get some kind of information on the tyres. We see a lot of the drivers running the medium tyres today, just because those softs aren't really viable as a sprint race tyre as much anymore with the new updates to GT7. But you get data on the tyres, you get data on the car and low fuel, as of course, with these races, the drivers will usually start with around 80-75% fuel. So as you can see there, Nigel, who has very little fuel, will know now for the feature race that he needs to do a bit better fuel saving, needs to start short shifting or lifting and coasting to get the fuel mileage a bit further. And that's the kind of things you learn, of course, throughout the course of these sprint races, so that you can better your performance and also better the car, get the best out of the car for the feature.
Just looking up at the front, Sarah trying to go around the outside of Sparky, heading on to the penultimate lap. Sparky holding his ground firmly and telling Sarah, you're going to have to do a bit better than that if you want to go around the outside of me. Sparky currently holding P2. Sarah thinks about inside into turn 3, but thinks better of it. She knows that there's going to be more opportunities as we go around this lap. Or just wait for Sparky to feel the pressure and maybe make a slight mistake, because Sparky is very slow as he goes over the crest of the hill. Sarah is in prime attacking range if she can nail her exit onto the back straight, Mac.
Yeah, as we head down into turn 6 now, Sarah late braking there, getting right up to the bumper of Sparky. Sparky taking that wider line, trying to get a better exit, but it looks like both kind of equal footing as they head out of turn 7 onto this long back straight. This straight 1.275 kilometers long, so it is quite long, and there's a few long straights on this calendar. I say this is probably up there with some of the longest. I mean, this track, I think this track is not even that much longer than 1.275 kilometers, so that straight definitely gives a lot of mileage to this track, and definitely is quite a staple as we head now into turn 12 onto the start finish straight to start the final lap. Sarah chasing down Sparky, but Iceman and Birdie would be wanting an opportunity here to get up into a podium position as well.
If you would have told me at the start of this race we'll have a 4-way battle for P2, I almost wouldn't believe you. I know we've had a lot of close races this season, but you can hardly separate any of them after a 13 lap smack.
Yeah, definitely, as we see as well on the screen, Nigel has ran out of fuel. Sparky's after getting a 5-10 penalty. This could open the door for Sarah as they head now into turn 6. Sarah, I'd say, won't be too worried about making a move around the outside, but she's going to try it anyways as Sparky gets out of the grass and Sarah's up into P2. Sarah didn't even need the penalty to get that move done, as Sparky now, his podium chances are crumbling as that 5-10 penalty and that mistake out of turn 6 has cost him a podium, and he's going to be down in P5 now and possibly P6 if Gary can get the run on him after serving this penalty. As Sarah now inheriting that P2, as I mentioned, as Murph will be coming up to the line soon.
Yeah, as Murphy is going over the hill as he reaches into the final corner. A very well-driven race. He got the lead early on and didn't look back as he takes victory here tonight. Sarah taking full advantage of Sparky's penalty to take P2, as well as Iceman being proed into P3, Bertie P4, Sparky P5, Gary P6. Mac, if you want to take us down the rest of the way.
Yeah, as Lee comes on P7 after that unfortunate spin, and the same thing for Tigo, having issues in Sector 1. We've got Damo, who we haven't talked about much this race. First race of the F1 RST Championship, and a good performance at that in P9 in the Supra. We've got Ziggy after that first lap skirmish, coming on P10. Of course, didn't talk much about Ziggy after that first lap, but still good to see him racing. Good to get this data for the feature race on the tires, on the fuel, as I mentioned. Always a good learning experience. We've Simon coming on in P11. We've got Nigel in P12, running out of fuel in the Ferrari, as I mentioned, and in fact still out there coasting around. So it's going to be a long drive down that straight at 50 miles an hour as Coach comes home in P13 in the Supra.
Interestingly enough, it looks like Coach decided he's going to take the extra bonus point for fastest lap, although I'm not sure if he receives it for finishing outside the top 10. But he chose to try and set fastest lap, which he does manage with a 18.9 Mac.
Yeah, so he will get that point for fastest lap, even though he's outside of that top 10. No matter what position you're in, you're able to be eligible for that fastest lap point. So, I mean, making the best out of a bad situation. Of course, we saw him, he wasn't having the best of runs in the sprint race, so he said he'd pit and he'd go for that fastest lap. It's not a bad option. So yeah, Nigel's still circulating on track with that low fuel. I think he's coming up to the line now soon enough. But yeah, unfortunate for Nigel, of course, in that 458, just the fuel consumption being a bit too much for him. We saw him run out of fuel just as lap 13 started. But he's coming up to the line now to finish in P12. So at least he made it home.
Finished and got the points for finishing in P12. Every little helps there, Mac.
Definitely.
Okay, and on to the qualifying results for Road Atlanta Blue Lobby. So, first off, top two qualifying on soft tyres, and most drivers in the field qualifying on mediums with the exception of Iceman and Sicily today. But taking that pole position on those soft tyres, we have our very own Sarah Hawkey in that M6, making absolute use of that M6 and getting the pole position. Very happy with that one, I'm sure. But in P2, the ever-fast Coach from Fesutu Racing on a 118.850, only 1/10 behind Sarah. In P3, the head of the medium runners, we have Nigel Mansdale on a 119.233. In P4, we have our very own big crazy Bertie in that Mclaren 650S on a 119.341. And in P5, the ever-fast Lee in that Porsche 911 on a 119.545. And in that Supra, we have Murphy picking up a 119.885, only a couple of tenths behind Lee. Very good for the top six so far, nice and tight, is what we like to see. Sarah, can you take us for the next six, please?
Of course I can. Not too far behind Murphy, we then have Tygo in the Ferrari 458, setting a time of a 119.951. Just behind in P8, we have Sparky with a 120.095. In P9, we then have Iceman qualifying on the hard tyres with a 120.577, with Ziggy in P10 just behind with a 121.316. We then have Super Simon in the Mclaren 650S, setting a time of a 122.336. And rounding off the grid tonight, we then have our new face to the grid, Damo, with a 122.760.
That's a pretty interesting grid, especially here in the blue lobby. I have to say, kudos to yourself, Sarah, for the pole position. And for those that want to see it, please check out our TikTok and Instagram for more videos on that. But I've got to say, looking through the grid, there's one that pops out to me, and that is Simon, actually, who only qualified a second off Ziggy, who is a sprint race winner himself, and ahead of Damo in his first race. So well done to Simon out there. Good luck to him in the race. But you have to say, for the potential race victory and all the podiums, it's looking tight, particularly at the top there. So only 1.3 seconds covering the top 8. And as we know, there's a multitude of tyres in there. So we're going to see a lot of strategy here today. And quite frankly, lots of good results there in qualifying. A lot of people that's going to be happy.
Yeah, and I was very happy with my pole position, but I won't say anything more than that. But yeah, I think it's set for a very interesting grid for the race. As you can see, obviously, the top two deciding to go on that softer set for a little bit of a quicker start, try, and get away from the rest of the pack. And also, Iceman, a very interesting choice, deciding to go on the hard tyres, thinking about longevity into the race. So, yeah, like I say, a whole mixed bag on the grid with some mixed strategies coming out, but I think it's going to make for some interesting racing.
Quite right, and with that in mind, I think we should get on to the Blue Lobby feature race. Let's do this.
Yeah, let's go.
And here we are back at Road Atlanta for the feature race. We've got Sarah starting on pole with Nigel alongside her in the front row. It's lights out and away we go. Sarah seems to get a good start, but Nigel's gotten a better one in that 458. Brilliant launch from the Ferrari. We know it does well at these starts. We head now into the first corner. Nigel leads them into turn one as Sarah drops down into the second position. Further behind is a bit of too wide action as we see Lee and McLaren going side by side as we head now into turn 2 and 3 into the S's. Now you can see Murph and Lee having a bit of a battle in turn 1, but it stops now as they're filing single file through the S's. Very hard to go side by side here unless somebody makes a mistake. Sarah still on the back of Nigel with that 458. We know it gets really good starts from a particular person in the red lobby that I shall not name, as Tigo gets a 5-10 penalty for track limits heading into turn 6. The Sparky gets past him around the outside. We head now onto this long straight, as I mentioned. There's 2 corners apparently on this straight. Turn 8 and turn 9. The very subtle left and right handers. They count them as corners on the official track map. So I guess we'll count them as well. We head now through turn 9 on this slight right kink, not left kink, getting left and rights mixed up again, like I did the last commentary, as Lee has his mirrors full of a Ferrari and a Super going side by side, as Murph is trying to get ahead of Tigo but doesn't get the move done, as it looks like Iceman getting a good exit off of that final turn of 10B. There's a bit of an incident in the back here between Demo and Simon. It looks like Iceman getting a good exit ahead of Ziggy and getting up into P8. So interesting first lap here, Kirk. There was a bit of action, but fairly calm apart from a few instances in turn 10A and 10B.
Yeah, absolutely. It looked like Simon could have, or might have outbroke himself, and it looked like he is carrying front end damage to Damo's rear end damage. So Simon might have outbroke himself and rear ended Damo. Obviously, unfortunately, dropping both of those 2 drivers quite a ways off the pack now, as it looks like we've got Merv and Tygo heading side by side. Iceman thinking about making it 3 wide, thinks better of it. Merv with the inside line tries to break a little bit later than Tygo to take P6. Tygo sneaks back up the inside of Merv, but he's on the grass on the inside of the corner, which gets that 458 all kinds of squiggly on the exit of the corner onto towards the back straight. And Merv using the power of the Super just power down the straight to pull away from Tygo, as Tygo gets back into the slipstream behind the Supra, as Iceman is basically pushing that 458 down the in the straight line as he pulls out from Tygo. Is again going slightly, they all think about going 3 wide there into Forest Chicane. They all think better of it as Merv still takes P6 for the moment, Mac.
Yeah, so interesting battles there at the back of the field. As you see Sparky getting a 5-10 penalty there in the 650S. So we've already seen a few drivers getting track limit penalty, and it's only been 2 laps into the race. So track limit's really harsh, along with these very, I'd say, old-fashioned runoffs. We've got some gravel and we've got a lot of grass around the track. Very little tarmac runoffs apart from, as I've mentioned, that turn 5 where it seems most people are getting penalties because you're able to use that tarmac and it's really bumpy into that corner, so it's very easy for the car to bottom out and drift a bit wide. As we see, we're riding on board here now with Ziggy, who's trying to mount a challenge on Iceman on the Genesis drivers, the AMG versus the Genesis, trying to look down on the inside into turn 6 into sector 2. Nothing coming of it, but Iceman does go a bit wide, nearly kicks up some grass with those left tires, as Iceman just on that curve trying to get a good exit, but looks like that AMG is just going to sit behind the Genesis for now, as Tigo's going to serve a 5-10 penalty, and Sparky would have done the same, although it doesn't look like Sparky's had any change of position. It looks like Tigo won't either, as Iceman is too far behind to take any advantage of that.
Closing it at quite a rate of knots there towards the end of the straight thanks to Tygo's penalty. Tygo's certainly going to have to drive very well in these next few corners to not lose position to Iceman, which I think he does. Iceman goes a little bit deep into that chicane, allowing Tygo to keep P7 for the moment. Up at front, it seems like Nigel is keeping Sarah at bay, even though Sarah is on the soft tyres. You've got to be thinking surely at some point in the coming laps those softs are going to start feeling a little bit worse than the mediums, Mac.
Yeah, definitely. We've kind of seen, especially on the full fuel loads, they would be starting this race with, we're seeing the tyres last about 8 or 9 laps. Towards the end, where you've got a bit less fuel, you could maybe push them 9 or 10, but that's about it. So the mediums will probably be the dominant tyre, and we'll have to wonder, considering we got 51 laps around this track, will anybody try their chances with the hards? So we'll see what the tyre strategy will be like. Some drivers will try to go for a 3-stop, some will try to go for a 2-stop with a combination of the hards. We'll see what ends up prevailing, but Sarah will be starting to struggle on those softs. I'd say within about 2 or 3 laps time, this situation will be looking a bit more grim. But that M6 doesn't have the worst tyre wear out of the cars in this field. I like to say some of the mid-rear cars would probably start struggling a bit faster. Cars such as the 458 or potentially the 911, the Porsche especially. We know that's not the best on fuel and tyres that Lee is currently driving. But yeah, most of the drivers on mediums right now, so they won't be having to worry about wear for another 10 to 15 laps.
Just Ziggy. Ziggy is spun at on the exit of the chicane, going sideways. Fortunately, avoiding damage, but not really losing too much time there compared to everyone else. Sorry, Matt.
No, I was just about to mention that Ziggy had a spin there out of that corner. Unfortunately, he was right on the back of Iceman. But yeah, this track very bumpy at places and really easy to want to settle the car and get one of those spins, especially in turn 1. I know from experience the 458 struggles a lot in that final sector, and that the curb on the exit of 10B is very bumpy as you head into turn 11 and 12 to round out the lap. Very bumpy, very easy to bottom out and head straight off into the grass and off into the barrier. As the drivers head onto the straight now, you can see Murph quite close to Lee here on the straight. We'll have to see if the Supra can get a bit of slip and try dive down the inside. We know the Supra has some pretty lovely straight line speed. Not speaking from experience, because I totally haven't had a lot of experience with Supras overtaking me with outrageous straight line speed, as Murph is diving down the inside here and is managing to get that move done on Lee, so getting ahead of the Porsche driver. So up in a P5 goes Murph, as we saw. Sarah up at the front is starting to close on the 458 of Nigel.
Maybe she's defying logic with what you were saying about the soft tyres. Maybe they have still got a little something to give more than the mediums at the moment. I just want to say Merv's having a very good round so far, wouldn't you say? Obviously winning the sprint race, and he seems to be doing quite well at this moment in the feature race.
Yeah, definitely. That Supra is definitely coming alive here at this track. We know that the car balance is especially different from some of the other tracks, because of course the Deep Forest has quite a lot of corners on that track. This track, I like to say, is fairly balanced. We got a few nice straights, we got a few twisty bits, lots of high speed corners. We've got 1 or 2 slow speed corners on the track in 10A and 10B. So there's a good mix for different cars to have their strengths and weaknesses that will play into the driver's hands. So he's definitely doing well on that Supra in P5 right now, as we see Sarah trying on the outside in the chicane, but not braking late enough to get alongside Nigel.
It looks like she possibly gave Nigel a little bump down that back straight, intentional or not, which possibly gave Nigel a little bit more speed to help him defend from the BMW. But Sarah's certainly keeping Nigel honest for the moment, making sure that if Nigel does make a mistake, that she is in prime position to strike, to take the lead away from Nigel for the moment. As you see Nigel picking up a half-second penalty, cutting a little bit too much of a turn 2, and fortunately picking up a half-second penalty, which will more than likely cost him the lead of this race at the moment.
Yeah, turn 2, if you take too much curb on the apex, a lot of the times the drivers will try to jump that curb a small bit, but if you take too much of it out, then it will be a penalty for you, unfortunately. As we are now looking throughout the fields, this field's definitely starting to die down. We say this every race. Once it gets to about, you know, 10 minutes into the race, field does start to die down. But we will have a bit of action here as Nigel will serve that 5-10 penalty, and Sarah is going to inherit the lead as they head now into turn 10A and 10B. Sarah well ahead. No fear of a challenge from Nigel into those corners for now. But yeah, as I mentioned, this is the point of the race now where it starts to die down. The soft runners will be thinking about pitting soon enough, and then the medium runners will be just trying to save fuel, save tires, and if they can get a position, then they will. But the field's starting to thin out now. The gaps are starting to get bigger between the drivers.
It's very almost opposite to what we see in the sprint race. Obviously, sprint race, more often than not, we see everyone run on the medium tyres, which allows for much closer racing for those 13 laps. Where in the feature race, obviously, strategy takes control. And then we see more range of options as we see Nigel going around the outside of Sarah, taking advantage of Sarah's poor exit off of turn 5 to go around the outside of the BMW driver, and he takes the lead back within the lap after he served the penalty.
Looks like a bit of a hotspot there for overtaking turn 6. I'm quite surprised. I've seen a lot more drivers than I would have expected taking the outside line when people have not the best of runs out of turn 5. As we see, a bit of nearly a spin there for Tigo, who's got another 5-10 penalty. But a lot of drivers heading around the outside of turn 6 and overtaking people.
Ooh.
When they have issues, there's a bit of contact there, and Nigel spun around. A bit of late braking from Sarah, and he sees the right rear quarter panel being tagged by the M6.
But obviously, very looks like Sarah might have just possibly outbroke herself there and tagging Nigel into a half spin. Maybe a little momentary lapse in concentration there from the BMW driver. Obviously, I would never guess intentional from Miss Hawkey, but it's easily done. A lapse of concentration. You know, when a race like this. It's very easy just to zone out and almost go on autopilot and make a simple mistake like that.
Yeah, well, even I had a lapse of concentration. I'm not even driving the car because I said right rear quarter panel. It was actually the left rear quarter panel that Sarah had contact with, because of course they were going into a left-hander and Sarah was on the inside. But yeah, I was just about to mention there, as Sarah has a bit of contact with the dirt and nearly has a spin and managing to get a good exit only because Nigel tagged the rear of that M6 and gave her a massive boost heading out of turn 7. But that was a bit of a scary moment for Sarah, as that front left is starting to wear out, and I think she will be coming to the pits within the next few laps, just around how we expected. 8 to 9 laps on the full fuel. You start to see the tires wear out a lot for the soft runners. You see she's pulling over to the right hand side and is coming into the pit lane now. Just something to mention, we have already had a pit stop, and that was from Damo. Damo's came into the pits in the Super and went onto the hard tires. So I was saying we might see some drivers come in and pit to the hard tires. Now, obviously, I think Damo was running the hards probably because he had that early race damage and just wants to extend that stint as much as possible. But we'll have to see if any other drivers will be looking at Damo's pace to see if they want to go onto the hards as well. As Sarah will be coming out of the pit lane now, just behind Tigo, I believe, and maybe ahead of Ziggy as well, unless Ziggy gets the jump. You can see Ziggy heading into turn 1 now. Sarah just come out of the pits, so it's going to be a bit of a battle here. And yeah, Ziggy comes out about a second or two ahead of the M6 driver, and she goes back onto the soft tires, which is an interesting choice. So running double softs already in the first 10 laps of the race.
Yeah, possibly looking to take these soft tyres to the end of lap 19 onto lap 20, as we see a little half spin there from Ziggy, and Sarah almost following Ziggy in his half spinning ways, but she quickly gets past the Mercedes driver, which is probably what she'd like on those soft tyres, to take full advantage of them and hunt down the likes of Nigel, or undercut the likes of Nigel, as we see Nigel go on for another lap. Interestingly enough, on the previous lap, the fastest driver on track was actually second place Bertie, although now that Nigel's got a bit of clean air away from that very worn soft, very worn soft as Sarah Hawkey, he's actually set a 19.7, which is only within half a second of Sarah's time on soft tyres, which is a very impressive pace, wouldn't you say, Mac?
Absolutely. As we look through the rest of the field now, it's just, as I mentioned, people are strategizing. They're starting to really conserve the fuel. As actually, one more thing to point out, I've just seen there, Iceman is also on the hard tires, so don't count Iceman out in P6 right now. And you see, I mean, if Iceman can be in P6 with the hards, we've seen previous races, hards have been just a no-go. But if Iceman's in P6 in the Genesis and is doing well on those hard tires, I'd say we could see more drivers switching to that compound as Tigo gets another 5-10 penalty. We'll be serving that soon enough. So Sarah will be chasing down the 458 driver, and that will help her in her chase of the 7th place car.
Funnily enough, looking at the pace that Iceman's setting on these hard tyres is actually quicker than pretty much all of the runners in front of him, bar Nigel. So maybe the hard tyres are a bit better than they may seem around here. Obviously this track mainly mid-speed to high-speed corners, which is less mechanical grip, more downforce related, which maybe makes the time loss of the hard tyres not too bad around here.
Yeah, definitely. I do have to say, you know, experience from the red lobby with those hard tires, that definitely around this track in the first sector, I was seeing matching my pace from the medium tires with the hards in that first sector, simply because the first sector is really down to just getting the weight shift, especially because I'm driving the 458, which is mid-rear, getting the weight shift of the car down through those S's, and just making sure that the car, you're complying with the car, and just not letting the car drive you, but you drive the car in that first sector, especially just because the weight balance of those mid-rear cars can be all whack in that first sector, because the S's, there's a lot of bumps, a lot of bumps, a lot of camber, and it's just very varying in that first sector, and just have to get that weight shift right.
Sarah absolutely flying her first clean lap after pitting, setting a 19.1, which is about it was about a second faster than Nigel on the previous lap on his worn softs, and 0.6 quicker than the lap he just set. So it looks like Sarah certainly has the advantage at the moment, and depending on the lap Nigel pits, she should more than likely come out in front of him.
Just want to point out as well, I think we might see a bit of a battle here soon enough between Sparky and Murph. Murphy catching up to the back of that 650S for the last few laps. Now Sparky's encountering traffic up ahead, which is going to hinder the 650S driver. In fact, he's onto the gravel, and that's not going to be good, as he's going to rejoin the track behind Murph. There's been a bit of contact there between Damo and Simon while Sparky was trying to lap him, and that means that the 650S driver is going to drop down to the 4th position. I was hoping that battle would have been a bit cleaner, and that overtake might have been under better circumstances. But yeah, Murph now up into the podium positions after Sarah's pit stop on that bit of an issue there. And Lee is even going to try and get past and get a move on Sparky here in a second.
Obviously, not really what you want to see. Obviously, the lap traffic's caught a little bit unaware by the pace of the approaching drivers. I'm sure no harm. It wasn't intentional. As I just caught a little bit out by the pace of the front runners.
Yeah, another thing to point out as well, Damo, who has already made a pit stop as well on those hard tires, which is what that battle was Damo and Simon. Damo has gotten ahead of Simon after that pit stop. It just shows how difficult it is to drive with that damage that Simon has, and also just showing another testament to the pace of those hard tires in this race right now.
Yeah, absolutely. They certainly don't seem all terrible around here. I just gotta say, compared to everybody else, like we saw in the sprint race, that Ferrari is absolutely drinking through fuel. It looks like Nigel has about a quarter tank less than the likes of Bertie and Merv, and that's only after 14 laps, Mac.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we just ride on board with Nigel really quickly as he heads into some of these slow corners, you can kind of see, revving out the engine there. You can see where the rev limiter is hitting that top. You see it's going blue, it's hitting the top of the rev limiter. And when I'm driving the 458, especially because I am also a 458 driver for the last few races, you really want to short shift. You see hitting that rev limiter again is not going to help with the fuel consumption. And personally, in all the last races with the 458. I've actually had better fuel than other drivers. Now, I'd say I'm very fuel conservative. I do a lot of short shifting, go a bit of lift and coast. But the 458, in my opinion, usually isn't the worst car for fuel. But it might just be the way Nigel's driving it right now, and might just be something that I need to learn over the course of the season.
Obviously, Bertie and Merv could do a bit of fuel saving as well. Maybe you're running in a slightly higher engine modes, as it looks like Lee possibly has a similar amount of fuel as Nigel. But yeah, it certainly seems like whether it is the car or the driving style, Nigel is certainly drinking through the fuel at the minute.
Yeah, it doesn't help that, and Nigel has two of some of the best fuel-saving cars behind him. The 650S we know has been one of the best cars in all the seasons for tires and fuel consumption. We know Birdie's the tire whisperer, as we call him, in this league, and it's something we've just seen as well, that the Porsche does not have the best fuel and tire consumption either. But you know, you just have to drive them a bit more cautiously. We've seen that Porsche run out of fuel at times on the last laps of races, and it's just something that you have to work around, and that's why you choose the car at the start of the season. You choose the car could be fast, could have terrible fuel consumption, just the gamble you have to take.
We got our first medium runner into the pits, P4 Sparky, obviously immediately dropping a position to Lee as Lee was closing down on Sparky. Sparky tired and he didn't want to fight Lee, and decides he's going to just pit and take some tyres and fuel, as we also see Tygo coming in as well from the 458.
Yeah, we'll probably see Nigel come in the next lap as well, because I think he was looking not the best on fuel. But you can see there, just as I mentioned, Tygo, who's driving the same car as Nigel, has 20% fuel on this lap, and I think Nigel only has about 5%. So you just, as you mentioned, just driving styles differing, and maybe Nigel pushing a bit harder in this stint of the race. You know, it's only the driver knows what's happening in the car, of course. And Nigel will be pitting this lap. You can see down there in the bottom left about 1-2% fuel left. As Birdie will inherit the lead here if he does stay out, which I'm assuming he will. He's got 25% fuel left and good tyres as it looks. As Murphy, you see big gaps between the drivers there. You can see as they head down that straight, the field thinning out after the first 16 laps of this race. But you do see Sarah. And Sarah on the new soft tyres, or the new soft tyres from 6 laps ago, that don't look very new right now, about 50% wear on that front left, is catching up to the hard runner of Iceman.
But she's still keeping a very fast pace, running in the mid-19s, which is about 2 seconds a lap faster than what Iceman is running. So it should still be, hopefully, even though the softs are looking a little bit second hand now, it should still be quite a simple overtake for Sarah if she does it at the right spot on the track, Mac.
Yeah, definitely. I want to say as well, so good to see Sarah having a good race this weekend. We know that the M6 hasn't been at its strongest points for the last few races, so really good to see her get that podium in the sprint race and be up there in the top 5. I mean, you can see now catching up to Iceman, of course, on those new tyres, but to be up in the top 2 at the start of this race, a very good effort from her.
I'm not sure what's happened to a Damer, but he's got 6 seconds worth of penalties back.
Probably from the pit entrance and exit. We know that if you cross the pit line once, you get a 3-second penalty, so probably not maybe getting a bit of oversteer on the worn tyres and accidentally crossing the pit entrance and exit lines. Very easy to do. I think I did it in qualifying a few times by accident and ended up resetting myself to the pits very many times. We head now into turn 10A. Looked like Sarah might have had a chance to make a move there, but Iceman late braking. I had to defend off for now as Iceman will be staying out another lap. You can see the fuel running down that car. It looks like Sarah and Iceman might be pitting the same lap. You can see they're very similar fuel. Sarah might have just one more lap left, but looks like Sarah will be coming in for a second stop already, while some of these guys are making their first stops as Murph's into the pit lane in the Supra.
And Iceman and Sarah both catching up. Damo, can Sarah take advantage of this lap traffic to try and sneak past the Genesis? Also, out in front, it looks like Bertie's got quite a healthy margin compared to all the drivers behind at the moment. Otherwise, it's been quite a good race so far, wouldn't you say, Mac?
Absolutely. I mean, the race is just beginning for me, to be honest. As we see Iceman heading onto the dirt there, which might give Sarah a chance at a run into 10A. But yeah, I mean, the race is just beginning here because the strategy is starting to unfold. You have the first stage of the race, which is kind of the early laps. You got people overtaking who might have not qualified the best, trying to get up into better positions and just in general trying to make the most of those tires and try to conserve them. But we're into that part of the race now where everybody's going different strategies. We've got Sarah, who's already about to make her second stop here in a second, and then we've got drivers like Birdie who haven't even made a stop yet. So this is really where things start to unfold. And just as I mentioned, Sarah and Iceman coming to the pits on the same lap.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it looks like the two cars will be coming, or two drivers will be coming in together. The funny thing is, it looks like Iceman indicated and let Sarah pass up the inside into the chicane, not realising that she would also be pitting on this lap. But maybe it's a bit of a blunder strategy call from Sarah at the minute, as obviously this is Sarah's second stop, and Bertie hasn't even made one yet, and he's already got half a lap advantage to her, Mike.
Looks like Z's had a bit of an incident there, just as you were mentioning about that, just having a bit of a spin in the first sector and having a few problems. But yeah, no, as you mentioned, I mean, the question is though, Iceman hasn't made a stop yet, right? Sarah's already made, now this is her second stop, but is going to be coming out nearly ahead of the Genesis, I think. So you have to think about it that way. She's managed to make a free stop and still be ahead of Iceman. So like Iceman hasn't made that stop. So I think Sarah's in a pretty good position right now, managing to just capitalize on that soft pace and not have to do a really long stint on the hard tires, just being able to pit and come back out. Of course, we've got drivers still yet to pit, but I think, you know, she's done the two soft stints now. She can take maybe a hard or medium tire for the next two stops.
Interestingly enough, Iceman's come out on another set of hard tires, taking him to about lap 38. Do you think Iceman's trying to do a two-stop? End of lap 18, end of lap 37, and maybe try and get a set of mediums or so to the end of this race?
I think it's an interesting strategy because I wouldn't expect two hard tires, because most of the reason that we have people that go onto the hard tires is simply because like the mediums will make it a full race stint, but then the hards are kind of just that tire, because of course you've used two different sets of tires in the race. So people put on the hards because they can't put the softs on because they only last about 10 or 11 laps if you're on low fuel, and then the hards are just going to last longer than the mediums. So I'm kind of surprised by that, because the mediums would make it to the end of a full stint if you conserve them correctly, like Birdie's done there, who's coming in with just about the front left nearly completely worn. But, you know, it's an interesting strategy. Maybe the Genesis has a bit higher tire wear. Of course, we haven't seen the Genesis ran much in these leagues. It's not one of the most driven cars. We see maybe one or two people run it per season, and it kind of just changes each season we see it because of BOP changes. So, I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe Iceman's cooking something up here. We'll see towards the last stage of this race.
And is Nigel going to be able to come out in front of Bertie? I know Nigel is running on the soft tyres, so he definitely will have the advantage, as it looks like he is going to come out comfortably in front of Bertie. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Is Bertie going to go to a set of mediums? Is he going to go to a set of hards for his second stint? And interesting enough, look how much time he's getting to the likes of Sarah Hawkey. Obviously Sarah doing two stops and Bertie only doing one.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this works out, because of course, you know, like Sarah's coming around the final corner now, and Bertie will be coming out ahead. But, you know, it's just kind of, she's done the two soft stints, and yes, she's lost a bit of time. But
our leader's off. The leader.
Nigel's gone a bit wide there into the grass. So not sure what's happening there. Maybe a bit of cold tires. Hasn't gotten up to temperature yet. But, you know, Sarah has managed to do an extra stop. But, you know, when you think about it, hasn't lost too much time. It's lost a bit of time, but not like the worst amount of time. It hasn't been a full pit stop's worth of time. It's been maybe like half a pit stop's worth of time to the leader.
It certainly seems like this could be anybody's race by the time it all figures itself out towards the end. It looks like that little mistake from Nigel we saw as he ran off track up on the run to the back straight cost him about 3 seconds, I want to say, compared to his previous lap times. Which isn't great for him, but it seems like he has plenty of buffer to the drivers behind. That maybe that won't cost him too much.
You just see Simon coming out of the pit lane onto some fresh boots. Does get that 3-second penalty. So yeah, that 3-second penalty is gotten by crossing the pit entry line. So would have accidentally crossed pit entry, probably on worn tires. Would have had that damage as well. Don't know if that was his first stop or not, but if it was his first stop, then would have had that damage that he was carrying for the first part of the race. So that probably could have hindered that pit entrance. It is quite a tricky pit entrance here. You think that the AI takes over a bit earlier than it actually does. You're pretty much halfway into the pit lane before the AI actually takes over. You feel like you're driving a Assetto Corsa where like you're just allowed driving the pit lane without any AI assistance. But then it does eventually take over. So it's easy to hit that outside wall. You don't know that. Which, trust me, I did it. Look, my first time driving this track, I went flying into the pit wall. I practically went over the pit wall because I thought, oh yeah, it's just going to take over like mid pit lane, and it just didn't. So.
Yeah, I haven't really driven too many laps around here, so I could tell you how it goes. As Simon serves his penalty, as Lee and Sarah overtake him and put him overtake him to lap the driver. It looks like Sarah might be catching Lee at the moment. That's probably our closest battle on track at the minute, Mac.
Yeah, I'd say so. You know, this is. We love to see the drivers pitting, but unfortunately, because of the different strategies, kind of generates these different like waves of cars on the track. We've got drivers who are on certain strategies and drivers that are just on a completely opposite, otherworldly strategy that are just doing something different. So it does generate these kind of gaps. But trust me, towards the end of the race, it'll all come together, and there will be some lovely battles towards the end of the race, I'm sure. But right now, this is just that stage of the race, as you mentioned, where they're trying to conserve their fuel. They're trying to extend this middle stint because, of course, you want to make as little stops as possible for most drivers. But you know that requires a lot of concentration. It requires a lot of lifting, coasting. Not turning as sharply into corners, a bit of short shifting if you're trying to save fuel. So that, of course, does make it that people won't be pushing and trying to catch up to other drivers as much as they would have been in the start of the race, the end of the race, for example. See Birdie setting a personal best lap here. Current fastest lap of the race, a 1:18.763 by Nigel in the Ferrari. That Ferrari looking very quick, and we know from Red Lobby that the Ferrari is a fairly quick car around here. Just that or weight shift in the first sector is really helping him out.
Funnily enough, I think that is matched what we saw to the 10th of what we saw in the sprint race. I think it was Coach who got the fastest lap in the sprint race with 18.7.
Yeah, that's interesting because Coach would have had softs as well, so that just shows how fast the Ferrari is. Because, actually, never mind. Nigel's on softs. I completely forgot he's on softs. So yeah, there you go. So both drivers on the same compound and the same fuel level, most likely. So yeah, it just shows. Of course, I don't think Coach is racing this race, unfortunately. But who knows? Maybe he would have had a nice battle with Nigel if they were up in pace with each other.
We've got an overtake going on, and looks like Sarah is overtaking Lee up the inside for P4. Lee not really fighting it, obviously knowing that they are on probably different strategies, and chose not really to fight it. Lee gave Sarah a little bit of a flash there.
It does look like that, even though they're on different strategies, they're on like fairly similar trajectories because they're both on the medium tires and kind of around the same fuels. So even though Sarah has made an extra pit stop, they're still technically fighting for position, I'd like to say, because they're both on the same compound, same kind of wear and fuel levels. So it's not as if they're on different compounds or different fuel or anything. So I'd say fairly level playing field, and Sarah making a nice move on the Porsche driver.
It's saying a few laps go, but we see Bertie setting his personal best at a 19.6, which I'm not sure on the grand scheme of things how fast that is, but it seems like a pretty rapid rapid lap on a set of fresh mediums. Looking like he is probably from the previous lap the second fastest guy, well, second or third fastest guy on track, only behind the likes of surprise, well, not surprisingly, Miss Sarah, and Nigel himself, Mac. As you see, Nigel moving into the pits.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Nigel coming into the pits, you can see how that rear left tire is really getting worn. The rears on that Ferrari has a lot of tire wear compared to some of the other cars which would have the fronts, like the M6, the fronts would wear quicker. Ferrari, it's the opposite way around. Seems to a way you can combat that fairly easily is adjusting the brake bias throughout the race, is putting a lot of front brake bias on the car to try and wear those fronts at kind of the same rate as the rears, because the last thing you want in that Ferrari is a rear tire being completely red, because you just literally can't drive the car.
But thanks to Nigel's pit stop, it now promotes Bertie back up into the lead of the race, with Sparky in second, Sarah taking third, and interesting when Nigel comes out. Nigel coming out on taking a full tank of fuel, and what tyres are going to be on? Is he going to be on the softs again? I'm not sure. Back, I think he might be. No, he's not. He's on the mediums. Took a little while for it to update there.
Yeah, so Nigel out on those medium tyres. I was just watching Damo had a bit of a spin in the first sector, but he's all good now, back up to speed in the Supra. But yes, that looks like the 458 driver coming out on the medium tyres, so that soft stint now closed for him, as Tigo looks to have a bit of front end damage, front right damage on that 458. Gonna be a bit difficult to drive. So on the hard tyres as well, so that's not ideal, because it's fine getting damage on the softs because you're only going to go about 8 or 9 laps on those anyways, but on the hards, you're stuck in with that damage for 20 laps unless you pit and pretty much sabotage your hard strategy.
Looks like it possibly, Tygo picked up a half-second penalty as well. Looks like it possibly spun somewhere and probably tapped a wall or something, as giving himself front and front right wheel damage. So as we come up towards just over half race distance now, Mac, what do you think, who do you think is your favourite to win the race at the moment?
Oh, it's a difficult question to be asking me now when we're halfway through the race. We've got a lot of different things going on the track with strategies. But I'd say right now, I do fancy Nigel winning the race. Totally not biased because he's in a Ferrari. But no, I'd say Nigel's been showing good pace, but I wouldn't count out Bertie either. I do think Bertie has that good pace. He's got that car that he's been so good in all of the seasons he's driven, with conserving fuel and tyres. So I think he has a chance as well. But I'd say I'd put my bets on Nigel right now, if I had to look at it.
And don't want to count out Merv neither. Obviously we saw him win the sprint race, so surely you've got to say, if we're looking for momentum going towards the end of this race, surely you've got to almost be expecting him to be making moves towards the podium. It looks like he's only about 6-7 seconds away from Lee and Sarah up in front, so if he's consistent and quick enough, there's certainly no reason why he won't be catching the Porsche and the BMW of the two people in front of him.
I want to mention as well, just about Sarah, of course. Sarah is in third position right now. Nigel has made his second stop now. So that does technically mean Nigel and Sarah have made their second stops, but Sarah's in third and Nigel's in seventh. This is what I was trying to say earlier when Sarah came out of the pits kind of a bit behind Nigel. And it just shows the different strategies and how originally it was Sarah in seventh and Nigel in first or second, but now it's Sarah up in the podium and it's Nigel down in seventh. So I wouldn't count out Sarah either. Sparky has a good chance as well, but I mean, honestly, it's really hard to tell at this stage of the race who can win, just because, I mean, there was a bit more uniform strategies, I'd like to say, at tracks like Deep Forest, but this track has seen a lot of doors open simply because the hards are an actual viable tire and the softs don't wear as soon as you look at them.
And people like Bertie and Sparky who have only made one pit stop at the moment. It looks like we've got a car facing the wrong way. It looks like Tygo is facing the wrong way in the first sector. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe possibly touched the grass and caused the 4-8 to spin as he does another pirouette on the grass. Obviously not helping this race out in any meaningful way there, Mac.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that 458 can be very tail happy at times, and certainly feels like the car can be driving you sometimes if you just don't have that weight shift nailed down. Of course, you know, it's a mid-rear car, and the balance on those, as I mentioned already in this race, can be kind of a bit whack in some tracks, in some of the box, or for the mid-speed box. So, you know, it's unfortunate, but I'm sure it'll bounce back. It'll try to bounce back in the 458. If you look up to the front now, it's currently a McLaren 1-2. Not the first time we might be saying that this year, considering the Formula 1. But yeah, McLaren's 650S 1 and 2 right now, as they've only made one stop. But Sarah is going to be chasing them down from behind, and we'll see if she can make any inroads into that dreaded 1-2. We don't want any McLaren's 1-2. We want Hamilton and Leclerc Ferrari 1-2.
Amen. We want to see a bit of Ferrari masterclass. Well, hopefully, Nigel's engineers aren't like the Ferrari engineers we see in Formula 1, Mac.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want any of that. No. We just need another Ferrari driver on the grid, and we'd be okay in the blue lobby. Because well, we've got Nigel and we got Tigo, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like Tigo's having the best of races right now. So we'll blame Tigo's race engineer for that. It's just a Ferrari strategy.
It looks like Tigo is pitting in at the end of lap 28, going on to lap 29. Interesting to see. It looks like he's repairing damage, or taking fuel and repairing damage to see where he comes out. Obviously, you can never really. There's always something to fight for around this track. Obviously, pit lane is quite a long one around here. I'm not sure how long it is exactly, Mac, but it certainly seems to be quite a long pit lane.
Absolutely, it's while like the track isn't that long itself, it just basically like with GT7 ever since they did like this one update, they used to have it so you enter the pit lane, once your pit stop was finished, you come straight back out on the track. But now with certain tracks, they account for the time it takes you to get in and out of the pit lane, and it kind of varies with different tracks. So like I know this track, as you mentioned, you're watching your car drive through the pit lane and a cutscene for about like 20 seconds. But then on other tracks, it's like you come out of the pit lane in like 2 seconds and then you're fine. So it kind of varies. I think, you know, some tracks they have long pit lanes, but then the pit time's really short for some reason, and then other ones are the complete opposite. Like we know Laguna Seca, you're stuck in autopilot like forever while you come out on the track. So yeah, I mean, it's just the nature of the game, and certain tracks will have these kind of disadvantages to them of the long pit exits.
What we were saying earlier about having a massive advantage, I don't want to alarm you, but our top 5 are now within the back straight of each other. It looks like everything started to close in slightly here, so we've got 20 laps to go, as Bertie is just about to tick over to lap 32, Mike. So maybe I did speak too soon when it comes to strategy. Maybe I should just keep my mouth shut.
It looks like Sparky's pitting as well, so that's gonna let Sarah inherit P2. You see, he does have a good bit of fuel, but maybe just feeling he wants to get an undercut on the drivers that are chasing him. It did look like that Sarah and Lee were catching up to the 650S pair. Let's see if Bertie will stay circulating on track if he's enough fuel to do so, and to take advantage of that. You see, oh yeah, Bertie's plenty of fuel. I can't even question that. 50% worth of fuel. Send it. Go on, Bertie. But quick fact as we get into the middle of the race here, while everybody works out their strategy. First race ever held at Road Atlanta was in 1970, and a Chaparral 2J won pole position in the qualifying. Of course, that car is in this game, and a lot of people like to call it the washing machine.
Yeah, well, it kind of has a look of the washing machine. I believe, doesn't it have 2 engines? One to power the fan and then one to power it down down the straights.
I believe so.
Yeah. I can't help but question: is Bertie gonna try and take this to about lap 41, 42, and then try and get a set of softs to the end of this race? 'Cause it looks like he possibly does have the fuel to do so. So it could we could see him actually save the fastest title last.
Yeah, I mean, Birdie is definitely. I've mentioned already this race. I'm like a broken record. I mean, it's true because it's true. Birdie is one of the best drivers on this grid at conserving tires and fuel, and we know it. The 650S is a brilliant car for that, and he has quite a good driving style to match it. To help save that fuel on those tires. So I think, yeah, definitely he will be waiting until the end of this race to maybe hop on a set of softs and just drive it straight to the end at full pelt. So we'll have to see. But just to mention about the 2J fact you said there. So there's 2 fans adapted onto the back of a military tank engine housed at the rear, driven by a single 2-stroke twin-cylinder engine. That's your fact. The 2J. I'm not the best when it comes to kind of cars past like vintage cars, but that's just Wikipedia for you.
Well, the more you know, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What is it? We've got looking at about 18 or so laps to go. Well, 18, 19 laps to go. Everything is certainly closing in. I've just got to say, how many drivers have we seen in the podium positions this race? Because I feel like almost everyone has been in the podium, within the top 3 at some point in this race, at some point or another. Definitely our top 7 have all been on the podium, at some point in this race. So we are certainly looking at a very close feature race.
Yeah, we gotta get like a record book or something to see if this is like the most amount of lead changes or podium positions. Oh, Simon has a bit of a spin there in the back. As Lee's serving a 3-second penalty, but he managed to recover it fairly okay, or maybe not. I spoke too soon. See, I should have just said nothing. But yeah, we should make a record book to see if that's true. Because I think I agree with you. There's definitely been a lot of different drivers on the podium here this afternoon, as we head racing into the night. As it's now getting very, very nighttime on the track. Be quiet, everybody. There's people sleeping. No, let's let these cars roar at full pelts and get into the last 16 laps of this race.
Yeah, I want to hear all the different types of engines, whether it be a turbocharged V8 or a turbo 6-cylinder of the Genesis. You know, we want to hear everything, Mac.
Yeah, what I certainly don't want to hear is tires squealing as Murph is headed straight into the barrier after pitting for medium tires and got damage on the front of the car and a 3-second penalty. That has to be like the worst combination I've ever seen. But Murph has had a bit of an issue coming out of the pit lane there. I'm not quite sure what happened, but there's an incident for the super driver, and that is going to really ruin his race.
Yeah, it's certainly not what he wants as he exited the pit. Just as you exit the pits as well, you know, it's possibly the worst place for it to happen, especially at the start of your stint as well. That could possibly be his chance of a podium finish. Dreams have possibly crushed there. It looks like even after the extra pit stop, Sarah is now caught back up to Bertie, Mac.
I don't know what's after happening now, but I think Ziggy just had the same issue on pit exit and has gotten damage on the front right. I'm not sure if that was there before he pitted, but I'd be very surprised if he pitted and didn't repair damage. So I think Ziggy having the same issue as Murph and having an issue on pit exit and yet another 3-second penalty. Seems maybe the night time is catching drivers out, not being able to see out of that very dark pit exit. Is looking up to the front now. Sarah is going to be coming to the pits this lap, got low fuel in that M6. And that lets Bertie charge on up the front without any threat from the M6 driver.
Possibly looking to undercut Bertie for the lead of this race. I think we've lost the driver as well, Mac. I think we've lost the other Ferrari driver of Tygo, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. We saw Tygo having a few issues in this race and just opting to retire, not taking the points. So that leaves one Ferrari left out there. So Nigel will be inheriting P2 now after Sarah's final stop. Sarah's going to be taking about a 15 to 16 lap medium stint, I'd assume. I don't think the softs will get that far, and she's already fulfilled the 2 mandatory tyre requirement for the race, so doesn't need to take the hards if she doesn't want to. So most likely going to be mediums for her. Z's coming back into the pit lane to fix that damage he got on pit exit.
I think we've only got 2 drivers now who haven't fully fulfilled the 2 tyre quota, and that is Iceman, who's running up in P3, and then Bertie in first. Everybody else has used 2 sets of tyres.
Interesting. So yeah, that's good to know, because we know now what drivers will have to pit. Of course, most drivers will end up pitting anyways, but we know what drivers will be trying to extend that stint because they might need a certain type of tire like softs, or they might need, they might need to pit now to get a longer stint tires, such as the medium or the hards. But I'd say Iceman most likely will try extend it to go on the softs, and I'd say the same as Bertie. Although look, Iceman, he's only got a bit of fuel left, so I don't know if he's going to make the softs last for, I'd say, 12, 13 laps. Might have to go on those mediums, which mightn't be ideal.
Though we did see Damo just about pull it off in the sprint race, so it's not completely unrealistic, but they'll definitely be very second-hand by the time you get to the end of this race.
Yeah, definitely is. We look now, it's getting very dark out here, so the drivers have their headlights on, heading into the first sector is the lead cars. See the cars dancing around as Nigel just heads into that turn 5. Very tricky.
I don't know if you've driven any night races this season, Mac, but what colour headlights do you prefer? Do you prefer the white lights or the yellow lights for nighttime racing?
Of course, I've driven some night races this season, because of course I drove this race in the Red Lobby, which you should totally go and check out after watching this commentary. If you haven't already, check out the Red Lobby commentary. It was a very interesting race in that lobby. But yeah, no, I was driving here, and to be honest, I just use whatever headlights my livery has, which was made by Deadlines, so I just use whatever he gave me. To be honest, I don't even know what color they are. I think they might be white. You'll have to, somebody should check the Red Lobby commentary and tell me, because I have no idea.
And speaking about the fantastic Red Lobby race, where we will get to see you racing, Mac, I believe I will be commentating that one as well, so you get to hear my lovely voice twice this week.
Yeah, good. So you better say good things about me now. Don't don't look at anything bad that I did. Just pretend I did everything perfectly. Yeah, no. Of course, I think my last race of this season, I might. It depends. I might race the next race, but I think it was gonna be last one, just because I have to do some projects and stuff. But yeah, I enjoy commentating the Red Lobby. Of course, there was a lot of action from that race, and it was really good fun to drive. And I have to say, Road Atlanta, the track flows really nicely, especially in that 458. So lots of action for you to be watching in that race, which you should check out, as I mentioned, after watching the Blue Lobby commentaries. You see Lee just lapping Z there, 89.11.
It looks like Iceman should be pitting at the end of this lap. It looks like his fuel is looking very low, which should surely be his last last pit stop of this race. Again, I think very borderline between softs, making the softs last, because they will be very second hand by the time he finishes this race. As we got yellow flags out, I'm not sure who was that, because I saw it for a second, but they seem to disappear quite quickly, Mac.
Yeah, I think that might just been a bit of a issue on pit lane for somebody, or maybe just a bit of a been nearly out of one of the NB 10A corners. So Iceman heads into the pit lane now, coming off those hard tires. Will he head on the softs or the mediums? As I mentioned, not a lot of data on that Genesis on the kind of tire wear, the tire exertion that it usually has over stint. But you have to remember as well, as I mentioned at the start of this race, if you run the softs about 8 or 9 laps, because you have full fuel, when you get to lower fuel towards the end of the race, sometimes you're able to run them longer distances, like 10 or 11. So if Iceman takes a bit less fuel and doesn't go for a full tank, which I'm sure he won't, then as you see, yeah, on 68% fuel, might be able to run the sauce, but it might just be the safer bet to get the mediums.
And see as he runs down the pit lane at about 31 miles per hour. I'm not 100% sure what that is in kilometers. I'm sure he just wants to put his foot down and get out of the pit, as he does, and he is on the medium tyres, Mac. So he's didn't take the soft gamble, but he'll be looking to hunt down the people in front of him now on the fresh set of medium tyres for the remaining 12-13 laps.
Yeah, of course, we know that once one of those tires gets down to red, unlike previous seasons, the car will basically turn into a sailboat. So you don't really want to be on a red tire towards the end of this race. So opting for the safer option, not taking that gamble, which I can completely respect. Birdie now heading through turn 7, just onto the straight. Going to be pitting this lap, I'd say, low fuel.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, it looks like Bertie will be pitting this lap. It'll be interesting to see where he'll come out compared to the likes of Miss Hawkey and Nigel. Especially if he does what we're expecting him to do and pit on to the soft tyres, it will certainly be flying for the first 7-8 laps. As he doesn't economize, he's going to continue for one more lap. He definitely cutting it very margin. His margin with fuel is going to be very tight on this final lap, Mac.
Yeah, as we know, the 650S very nice on its fuel, so we'll be running on fumes, I say, by the end. But I'd say Nigel might think about pitting this lap. Will he? No, he won't. So going to stay out just like the 650S drivers. So both of them will be pitting next lap. I want to mention as well, even though Sarah, we were mentioning earlier about the double soft stop, is coming through turn 10A now, while these guys are heading through the first sector. Just saying, if they're going to make another stop, because I think Sarah won't be making another stop in this race, if Nigel and Brody were to make another stop, or not if, they are going to make another stop, could Sarah be able to get ahead of them?
Yeah, and then take track position and just defend towards the end of, in the final 9 or so laps. But obviously we know, although the pit lane is long, only 30 miles, is Sarah too far behind to be able to overtake Bertie or Nigel?
Sure, we'll find out once these guys head into the pit lane in a few moments' time, as Lee is also coming in for a stop in the Porsche. We'll be refueling, getting a new set of tires that say soft, maybe for that Porsche, but we know the Porsche isn't the most efficient on tires, so might go for mediums instead, as Bertie heads into the pits as well now. Barely any fuel in that 650S, and Nigel will be following soon enough into that pit entrance.
I think did Bertie enter 0% fuel after that I see? Definitely cutting it very close. It's no, you see Nigel only has 1% fuel as well.
They get to work on this car, and Bertie is still refueling. We'll have to see where Sarah is on the track right now. Sarah is just heading through turn 10B, so Sarah will be able to get ahead of Nigel, but will she get the jump on Bertie? I don't think so. Bertie's just coming down this pit lane now. 31 miles an hour, as you mentioned, Kirk, earlier. He's going to be rounding that right-hander now. It's going to be close as they head into turn 1.
If you had told me after 42 laps of this circuit, we'd have a side-by-side lead, side-by-side battle for the lead. Basically, what is it now? A 9-lap shootout towards the end of this race. I would have told you you're having a laugh, especially at some of the leads we had early on during this race. But it's all to fight for now, Bertie, Sarah. Mac, should I say, Sarah, Bertie and Sparky are all within, what is that, 10, 12 seconds of each other?
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. And just mention as well, Sparky is actually able to get up in a P3. We haven't really talked about him in this last stage of the race because Nigel, Bertie and Sarah were kind of up there in the top 3. So yeah, Sparky managing to get up into the podium for now as we head into these last 9 laps. And Bertie and Sarah heading on that straight. It looks like Bertie's dropped back a bit. And you have to wonder now, is Sarah going to be able to pull this off and fend off from Bertie and Sparky, who might try catch up as he's just coming out of turn 10B behind these guys now. As always, he had a spin. Is that Sparky that's had a spin there in the final corner? No, that's not. That's somebody else. My apologies. Just saw somebody going having a bit of a spin on the track map, and I thought it might have been Sparky. They'll say it was Damo having a few issues in that final corner on those hard tires. But yeah, so Sparky, we wanted to chase these guys down, but does he have enough time?
Yeah, I'm not sure if Sparky will be able to because he's on the hard tyres. It looks like we have got a battle for the lead between Sarah and Bertie, a battle for P3 between Sparky and Nigel, and a battle for P5 between Iceman and Merv. So it's in this final, we essentially have now an 8-lap shootout for 2 podium positions and P4.
Yeah, well, it looks like Birdie just, even though Birdie is on those soft tires, I don't think he's able to get him fired up right now. Just, you see there, was behind Sarah, come out of the pit lane, just is not managing to keep up with the medium runner. And you can just see the brake disc glowing as Sarah was entering turn 10B there, while heavy braking zone, probably one of the heaviest on the track, as turn 1 is kind of, it's a bit mid-speed. You got about 4th gear heading into that corner. So yeah, I mean, it's all to play for here for the end of this race.
I'm not sure how you feel about it from your experience, but I know when I'm racing and I find myself not really pushing, when I move on to a tyre, obviously we saw Bertie go from mediums to softs. I can sometimes find it takes a few laps to really feel the limits of the car and the tyres. Obviously when you're not used to it, it can take a few laps of acclimatization to realise just how much grip you've got.
Well, I mean, it depends, because it depends what tires you want. If you've never driven the tires before, then that's fair enough. But these are the soft tires, which, Birdie would have been running at some points in practice, I'm sure, and even maybe at some point in qualifying might have been testing him out. So, like, everyone kind of knows the soft tire pace, and the mediums, especially, people should know the mediums, considering everybody uses those tires pretty much all the time in these races. So I'm not sure. Like, I'd say hard tires, fair enough. Soft tires, I'd say, if you're told you've more grip, then I'd say use it.
But unlucky there for Bertie. He went purple in both first and second sector, but missed out on the fastest lap by just under a tenth of a second. It looks like he's finally got those soft tyres fired up as he outpaced Sarah by a second on that previous lap. So he's really starting to make those soft tyres work. It's maybe not so a little bit too far back to think about a move just yet, but you've got to think it's only going to be a matter of time now before it happens. It looks like we missed an overtake for P5 between Iceman and Merv. I'm not sure what happened there. But Iceman up into P5. But yeah, it looks like our closest battle now on track is between it's a battle for the lead between two of the Nighthawk admins, Sarah and Bertie.
Yeah, it looks like Murph's still carrying some form of damage that we just haven't really picked up on, but I'm not sure if he ended up pitting again after getting the damage on the pit exit, but still carrying some form of damage on the front right, so that probably would have helped with the overtake that Iceman was doing. Wouldn't have nice straight line speed or good grip in the corners with the front. But yeah, this is now the battle for P1 pretty much, and they look fairly equal on pace, to be honest, even though Birdie's on fresh softs and Sarah's on pretty okay mediums. It looks like they're kind of fairly equal on pace.
We know Bertie's running a lot of clean air for this race, most of this race. Maybe he's not quite used to the dirty air effect as well. Obviously, following as you get closer to the car in front, the fronts lose downforce, and you tend to understeer and scrub the fronts a bit more.
Just to mention as well, I said Murph was carrying some form of damage. It looks like he's coming into the pit lane now. So I don't know if that's because he got the damage on the previous lap maybe, or if that was some other just decision to go on to a new tire, maybe because Iceman overtook him, but is in the pits now. And just an interesting fun fact about Road Atlanta, it's the only track I've really noticed it in the series. Might have happened on other commentaries. But for some reason, when people have damage, when they come into the pit lane at Road Atlanta, it shows up as it being front end damage, no matter what type of damage it is. I just find that pretty interesting. Little glitch for ya. If you go back and rewatch all the things now, I bet you someone's going to prove me wrong. There's going to be one person coming to the pit lane that doesn't have that form of damage. But if you go back to some of the previous people repairing damage, they all have front end damage, even though some of them had like wheel damage. It was kind of interesting, just that I noticed.
Yeah. Looks like Bertie's starting to drop back now from Sarah. I'm not sure how this is going to go now. But yeah, it looks like maybe it's advantage Sarah. Maybe the softs didn't give Bertie as much grip as he expected.
I mean, and we know as well, Bertie's a very like conservative driver when it comes to these races, so it might just be a case of as well that he's just not used to pushing at full power in the race. Of course, like as I mentioned, Bertie is the tire whisperer and he is very conservative. It's a really good combo. Him in that car, really good on fuel, really good on tires. Maybe not used to having to push full pelt in the race to try and catch up to P1. Or maybe there's a bit of games going on. I don't know. Maybe Sarah's using some of like mind control to keep Bertie behind. You know.
This is not the position you're looking for. You know, a bit of a Jedi mind tricks.
Exactly.
I'm not sure what to say. You've got to think, surely the more laps we do and the closer we get to the finish, it's got to go advantage to the medium tyre. So obviously we know, well, it's just common knowledge that the softs wear out quicker than the mediums. Looks like that gap is just about a second at the minute. I was saying in this lap, it looks like for the first sector, Bertie's really closed up to the back of that BMW. I think it's still a little bit too far back, barring a mistake from the BMW driver to make an overtake, but maybe he's starting to lock in, as the young kids would say.
Oh, he's cooking. Don't worry, he's cooking. He's locking in. Exactly. Yeah, so we're heading down the straight now. Yeah, I do agree with you. It looks like Bertie is a lot closer to that N6 heading down the straight. Just to get in that slipstream, it does look like he's catching a small bit, which is not close enough heading into 10A to launch any sort of move, or any sort of move that won't end up with both of them in the grass. Could dive bomb, but that wouldn't be very nice.
No. It looks like even in the slipstream, that McLaren's probably only got about 3 or 4 mile an hour on the BMW, so it looks like Bertie's going to have to try and get as close as he can before making a move, because the McLaren doesn't really have that much of a top-end advantage on the BMW around here.
I mean, it could be worse. She could be driving a Ford GT, and oh boy, I don't have a good experience with the Ford GT in the red lobby. It's a very fast car on the straights, and it is impossible to follow it. I remember Charlie in the Ford GT literally pulling away from me on the straight while I was like a tenth behind him with slipstream. Absolutely ridiculous.
A bit like the Viper at Deep Forest.
Yes. It was at Deep Forest as well. It was just that I don't think anyone was running the Viper in the Deep Forest race, or at least anybody that I was fighting. So I was just stuck behind the Ford GT.
But yeah, it looks like this lap Sarah has managed to pull a gap out on Bertie. This lap as well is surely you got to think time is running out for Bertie as they are about to start lap 50 of 51. Yeah, very well driven race so far from Sarah, and looking through the rest of the pack, it looks like Sparky is doing enough to keep Nigel behind. And that's really all we've got going on at the minute, Mac.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely thinking earlier that, you know, these strategies, the differing strategies, they definitely generated a bit of gaps in the field. You know, we've seen with other races, especially where even with different strategies, there's absolute chaos at the end because there's so many people trying to overtake each other. But I think this one definitely a lot more like an endurance race where everybody's kind of doing their own thing. There's a lot of different strategies, but the gaps at the end being big, end up being bigger. Like we've got a big gap there between Birdie and Sparky, and it just shows how well some of these strategies have played out because of that that advantage that people have got because of those strategies. And you see now Birdie has dropped a little bit behind the M6, and it looks like the challenge might be over as they're on the penultimate lap, about to start the final lap. And it looks like Sarah might have this in the bag. I don't want to jinx it, but it's looking like it's going the way of the M6.
I think this is Sarah's best chance to win a race since Daytona last season, or Daytona Oval last season, where unfortunately a little miscommunication between me and her cost her the win on that occasion. But what is it? What 3.4 miles is this layout of this layout? One more lap of this track is all that separates her from winning this race.
Yeah, as they head through turn 4 and turn 5 now. Already has caught a bit. It looks like that Mclaren has been good in that first sector on those soft tires, just because the soft tires are able to use up that extra grip. But that front left is looking a bit grim, and I think the M6 is going to have the advantage. They head onto the straight here now, about a second and a bit between the two drivers as they race down the straight into the night. And you can see there the M6 has quite the nice advantage. You see Murph up ahead, just ahead of these drivers.
As Sarah runs in towards, is it 10A and 10B, is it, Mike?
Yeah.
As she exits 10B, comes up and over the crest, careful not to lose it, as sometimes the rears can spin up. As Sarah comes around the final corner to win at Road Atlanta. A fantastic race from Sarah and a fantastic race from Bertie to take P2. A fantastic race from both of them. Bertie in the end just not having enough to be able to close and overtake that BMW. I'm sure he'll be kicking himself, unfortunately missing out on this victory. Again, now we have Sparky again coming from nowhere really to take P3 in this race, just holding off the Ferrari and Nigel in the end for 3 and 4th. And then Iceman again driving an absolutely stellar race. You must say, 2 stints on the hard, making that 2-stop work fantastically, just like Bertie to take P5, with Lee taking P6. Obviously Merv in the end not quite being able to do enough in the end to catch Lee to reclaim P6. Obviously after we saw Merv picking up a damage on the exit of on the pit exit, obviously lit up the rears and crashed into the wall, unfortunately, which probably cost him P5 in this race, unfortunately. If you want to take us down the rest of the grid, Mac.
Yeah, sure. Ziggy is just ahead of Murph there as he crosses the line as well in P8, with Murph just behind in P7. Simon crosses the line alongside Murph in P10, and Damon is first racer in Night Racing in P9.
Yeah, a very good race here tonight, Mac. Who would be your driver of the day, would you say?
I'm going to be honest, I think, it definitely has to go to Sarah. I mean, the podium in the sprint race and then following it up with a feature race win. I guess, it's one thing to win the sprint race, but it's another to win the feature race. The sprint race, it can be very chaotic. There can be first lap crashes. There can be drivers, have offs and stuff. But the feature race is purely just strategical skill as well as being consistent and not having any issues. I don't think Sarah made any mistakes really in that race. And just a phenomenal performance to come home with a double podium, of course, that win being the feature race.
Yeah, I think I've got to agree with you for the most part. I've got to give it to Sarah. You summed it up really well. I was a bit unsure at the start of the feature race when I saw her do double softs at the start, but she certainly made it work an absolute treat. And I agree with you. I think driver of the day for the Blue Lobby has got to go to Sarah. I don't think I saw her put a foot wrong through the entire race, but that's certainly not to take it away from anybody else. The likes of Sparky and Bertie, everyone I think has drove an absolutely marvellous round tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen some very, very good performance here in the night and in the day in the feature and sprint race. And that's going to round out all the action that we have here from Road Atlanta. It was another race in the American stint. We had Trial Mountain last week, and we have Road Atlanta this week. And make sure after this you go check out the Red Lobby commentary. And if you didn't catch the other race of the American stint, make sure you go watch Trial Mountain as well. But that's about it here from Road Atlanta. I've been joined by the amazing Kirk in the commentary box. Thank you, Kirk.
Yeah, right, no worries, Mike. The pleasure has been all mine. It's nice to make my commentary return.
Yes, of course. And I think this is only the second time. I think we said we've commentated once before. So good to have some time in the comm box with you, Kirk, again. So that's going to be about it from us today here at Road Atlanta. An excellent sprint and feature race. And we will catch you in the next one.
Well, first off, I just want to say it's a pretty big surprise and a pleasure to be sitting here right now and asked to talk about my race and how things were for me today. And it's pretty awesome feeling to get that message, and this is pretty cool. So yeah, I didn't know really how today was going to turn out for me. This year's been a little bit up and down for me. I really feel like I haven't lived up to my expectations all that much. It's been a little frustrating at times. I think last week, especially after Trial Mountain and the struggles that I had, I was just ready to start a clean slate and just really start over, and that's what I wanted to do, especially coming to Road Atlanta, which is a place that's kind of closer to home for me. I'm from the East Coast, so and I've spent some time down south, and I really love racing and the culture of racing down there. So this was a cool race to be a part of, and I wanted to run good in it, and that was a big focus for me coming into the week, was just getting practice and working on my mental and just making sure that I'm staying calm, focusing on my race and taking care of the things that I can control, and I think did a pretty good job of that for the most part. Coming into the race, my whole goal was to really just make it a two-stop race for me. I felt like the car just only lasted 9-10 laps on the softs. Just wasn't going to be acceptable for what I needed, and I felt like the car had a lot of speed in it, so I felt like even on like the harder compound or the medium compound, I felt like I could still be pretty competitive as long as I was doing my job. So that was kind of the way I was looking at it coming in. So I qualified on the hards with the intention of starting on the hards, and I just wanted to go out, lay down a solid, clean lap, and I feel like I did that. I think that put us P8, which I was pretty happy with. I felt like for the tire compound I was using and just everything going on, I was pretty happy with that. And so just kind of looking forward to the sprint race and getting out there and seeing what the car could do in traffic. It turned out pretty good for us. I think I started P5 in that one, and it was a little chaotic there early. I remember, I think Simon kind of got out of line. I got under him and around him and was just kind of chasing Murph for the most part. But, things kind of fell apart for me there really quickly. I made a mistake and ended up having a half-second penalty there at lap 4. And then it really cost me. And, as I was kind of drifting back the field, I was thinking to myself, well, kind of got to start anew here, try to start anew and just make another run at this thing and try to make something out of it. And ended up getting a little shook up a little more, caught a couple more penalties, and just couldn't get things really going until probably about halfway through the race. And then I started to come through the field, and I saw some other guys and have some misfortune, and that helped me get back up through there. But I felt by the end of the race like the car's speed was really good. We were gaining on the leaders, and it really helped my confidence, heading into that feature, and taking those few minutes after to kind of reflect on everything, and then reset my mind again, and come out more calm for the feature was a big thing for me. Like I said, rolling off 8th, I felt like that was a good spot for me to be in. I felt like I could just kind of play the long game like I wanted to. It showed pretty early. I felt like through the pit cycles that I felt like I could be pretty competitive, and things were going pretty well for me for the most part. All of my pit stops went off without a hitch. I think I was able to get in on the exact laps that I wanted to, and everything really just kind of worked out for me for the most part. I didn't really make too many mistakes, other than I did jump the start there at the beginning, which I was kicking myself a little bit for. But at the end of the day, I couldn't be happier with how I did. I felt like I finally kind of performed in a way that I feel like I should have been doing all along this year, and that's what this is all about. Is about me coming here and racing around a lot of great talent that's here, and getting better, and just having fun too. Mainly just having fun, and that's what it's been. It's been a huge pleasure to be able to race with all of you out there, and it's definitely helped me get a lot better, even since I started coming in and racing with you guys in the rain, and now here in the season, and being able to come in and commit to that second half of the season. It's been awesome, and I can't say enough about that. And just everybody that's running the program over there, you guys are amazing, all of you, and the YouTube videos are great. I always look forward to watching them. And obviously I can't wait to see this one. So it's gonna be nice to kind of watch my race back and see how well I did, and hopefully I can keep this momentum going, and we can do a little something with it, and finish out the season strong. That's really what I want to do. This my main goal for the rest of the season moving forward. So big thanks to everybody over at Nighthawk. Thanks for this opportunity, for being able to sit down and just kind of speak a little bit on what I've been going through and thinking this season. And big shout out and a big thank you to Coach at Fasuto. He was the one that really helped me find my way over here, and it has been awesome ever since. And also shout out Intimidator. He's been somebody that I've picked his brain a little bit, and him being a more experienced guy, I've kind of leaned on him for some things, and it's helped me tremendously. So with that being said, I can't wait to see you guys next week, man. It's gonna be awesome, and yeah, good luck to you guys. See you out there.
Hello everyone, it's Hawkey here, and it's been a very long time since I've been asked or had to do one of these. I've not been on the podium for quite a while, but it took me 8 rounds of this season to get on the podium. This car, the BMW M6, in pre-season testing, it seemed like, we were gelling quite well. As the season started, what did GT7 do? Hit us with a random BOP change, which completely changed the feel of the car for me. But, we're soldiering on. But, yeah, obviously, sprint race, starting off with the sprint race, I started off in P7. And I wasn't quite confident at the start. I didn't know what to expect. But as the race went on, I got more and more confident. I had a little bit of a battle with Iceman, Bertie, Tygo, then Sparky towards the end. Obviously, he was very unlucky with that half-second penalty with Sparky. But it was a really good race. I enjoyed battling with all of the drivers. I enjoyed battling with all the drivers during all of the races, to be fair. I'm really proud of how everyone's doing, and let's keep it going, guys. But yeah, I am it's always a pleasure racing alongside these guys, especially in the blue lobby. It's always good to see how they get on. But going back to the sprint race, I had a few moments with Bertie where we were so close. Sometimes I went off the track, sometimes he went off the track. But I didn't know that was going to be a battle that was brewing in the feature race as well. We had a similar pace this week, which is always good. And like I said, it's always a pleasure racing alongside Bertie. We know each other quite well, so we always give each other enough room on track. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Got up to P2 in the end. Like I say, Sparky being really unlucky there with that half-second penalty, which I believe dropped him off of the podium. But he had the pace to be on the podium, and he did really well. And like I say, the sprint race is where I kind of built my confidence a little bit. Obviously, practice. You're normally driving on your own. You're trying to beat your own lap time. In these races, obviously, you're then racing alongside each other through sections, which doesn't always invite side-by-side racing. You've got the dirty air, you've got the tyres to worry about, so obviously it throws a complete different curveball to practice. So sprint races, what I always say, is where I kind of do that race simulation where I know where to brake, where how the dirty air affects the car, or try to at least. I try and predict it, don't always get it right, but I managed to get up to P2. I was very happy about that, and like I said, obviously starting off round 8 pretty strong, and then qualifying, I did not expect to get on pole. It's the first time I think I've ever got on pole throughout the 4 seasons that we've done, so to say I was happy is probably an understatement. I remember in the party chat that we were in, beaming to ear to ear, shouting, probably like a headless chicken. But I think I only beat Coach by a few milliseconds, so it was incredibly tight between me and Coach. Obviously, both of us starting on the soft set of tyres. Everyone else, I believe, went either for the mediums or the hards, so we were on that kind of fresher, softer tyre, which gave us a little bit more speed. But I managed to get on the podium. Going over to the feature race, obviously starting on pole, had Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari starting next to me, and that Ferrari on the start line is rapid. I don't know if anyone else has had the chance to race one of the Ferraris on the starts. They're in a league of their own. They just literally fly off the grid. But he managed to get in front of me pretty much straight away into the first corner. I was able to hold on, stay behind him for quite a while. We did have a little bit of a lag issue in I think lap 8. I didn't hit him from my side, but I know it kind of on other people's point of view, it did look like we came together, but obviously unfortunately GT7 doing GT7 things. But it got a bit interesting towards the middle of the race. Obviously my pit stop strategy was softs for 9 laps, then another set of soft for 9 laps, then I went on a double medium stint. So I wasn't sure if it was obviously the strategy that would win the race. I wasn't quite sure at that point, but let's just say me and Bertie came very close towards the end. He pitted, I came around the first corner, and I just managed to pip him on the pit exit and got ahead. He got very close to me at one point because I believe he went on the soft set of tyres right at the end, so he was incredibly quick on the track. So I didn't expect to hold him off, but I just managed to hold him off in that last stint and managed to win the race. Obviously I did not expect that whatsoever, but it was a great race, battled for it with quite a few of the drivers side by side, and got some good, I'd say, pictures from it and memories from it, because everyone was clean, everyone was fair. So it's a really good race. I really enjoyed it, and I'm now retiring, guys. You won't see me again. I'm only joking. But yeah, no, I did not expect to have that good of a round, but kind of happy that I did. Boosted my confidence a little bit, because this car, like I said earlier, we've not gelled it as quick as what I thought we would, but happy to get a good result in the end. And like I say, when you've had a few tough rounds, to have a really good round, it does boost your confidence going into the final 2 rounds. So let's see what we can do at High Speed Ring and Bathurst. Hopefully I'll stay out of the walls, but you know me, I'll probably end up in the walls again. But yeah, It'll probably be a while since I have to do one of these again. So I'll see you when I see you. But again, thank you so much for the love on all of the YouTube videos, the social media. We do put a lot of work behind the scenes, and a massive shout out to my Nighthawk team. Love you all, love all the drivers, and yeah, thank you so much for your support. Talk to you soon.
Hi, how's it going, everybody? Yeah, sprint race went really well. Started in 4th. By turn 1, I was up into 3rd. Had Iceman behind me, keeping me honest. Second lap, me, Sparky and Dehan just sort of settled into a race. Nothing really much happened in the second lap. But by the 3rd lap, Sparky had passed Dehan, which put him slightly offline, allowing me to catch up with him. He had a slide in the double right-hander just before the straight, which gave him a slow exit, so I got past him for the final chicane, putting me up into 2nd. The Super's really fast at the minute. So I put the boot down and chased after Sparky. I was just nibbling away at his lead. And on the last corner, leading on the straight again, it's kind of my pouncing ground there for people. I got slightly better exit again. I was more concentrating on the exit of that corner because of the long straight. I tucked in behind Sparky. I got past him at the chicane at the end. Which got me up into 1st place. After that, I just settled myself down, kept my head down, kept my lines clean, tried to stay out of trouble, tried not to get any corner cutting penalties or anything like that there, and that's where I stayed right till the end of the race. Great race. I'm actually very surprised because the feature race didn't go to plan. Started in 6th, it didn't go bad, but I started in 6th and finished 7th. I got 2 3-second penalties for pit lane infringements, and one of the exits that I done coming out in the pit touched the grass on the right hand side and smacked up the wall. So yeah, not great, but it was a great race. Had great couple of battles with people and stuff, and it was all pretty clean and stuff. So finished 7th, which isn't bad, but could have been better. I got lovely points, and I want to thank everyone for the races that I had, and I had a ball. Don't know about you guys, but it was a great race. So thanks very much, everyone.
I was off the pace and didn't feel 100% confident with the car, but I made up for it with my strategy. I almost bottled the race on the last lap like the sprint, so I almost had 2 embarrassing races. But happy to finish on the podium.
Sprint was okay. I struggled to race against Iceman due to some lag. The feature was better. I managed to make the 2-stop work. I had good pace, but just ran out of tires near the end, so couldn't attack Sarah. But well done to Sarah, she had a good night of racing.